I'm a game developer, and last week I asked you guys to give me your dumb, stupid, and dare I say goofy game ideas. And I'm gonna use all of these ideas to make the dumbest game of all time. YouTube commenter Anas Siddiq suggested monkey driving a golf cart simulator. I mean, sure, why not? Step 1, model a golf cart in Blender. Actually, we'll make a few, just to be on the safe side. Next, we need to make this thing drive. In my opinion, there's 3 main genres of driving games out there. You've got your classic racing sim. Then there's kart racers. These are games like Mario Kart and Garfield Kart. However, in most of these games, it feels like you're glued to the ground, which isn't really the route I want to go down here. But there is a subgenre of kart racers that I'm dubbing rage racers. These games allow the kart to bounce, flip, and generally just do the opposite of whatever the player wanted them to do. And that's the type of game that I want to make here. So, I started by making the suspension using Hook's Law, or as I like to call it, the Pirate's Code. Yep, that's exactly what I was going for. Making this thing drift around was a piece of cake, as illustrated by this incredible driving game I made when I was 15. I also gave the car eyeballs. I don't know why. Literally nobody suggested that. Anas specifically said that the goal of this game should be to collect bananas, and a ton more of you guys agreed with that. Hey, it's your game. First, I jumped into Blender and modeled the banana. I then brought that into Godot, gave it an outline as well as this bubbly base. Next, I tried to animate it, but honestly, I don't know if this is safe to show on YouTube. All in all, I think this looks pretty good though. Alright, monkey time. If you're new here, this guy's name is Berg, and he's become somewhat of a mascot of the channel. He appeared in his own game titled Berg, as well as one of my later games called Barji Kart. So I grabbed the model from Barji Kart and improved it a little bit, so now he looks like this. So here's Berg in game, and as you can see, his arms are linked to the steering wheel to give him a little more life. I also made him slide in the opposite direction to your turn, which rounds it all off quite nicely. Twitter user Midostran wanted to see if we could do a flip, so prepare yourselves. Alright, besides some trivial things like UI showing you where the banana is, as well as collecting the actual bananas themselves, that's Anas's idea complete. Alright, next idea comes from YouTube user Starfighter7570, who suggested a game where you are stranded on an island, but there is a weird twist that happens and there is a bargenado. Alright then. A bargenado is simple enough. I made this tornado graphic with some particles. I made it so that driving into said bargenado launches you into the air. As for the island, that's actually quite a good idea. This grey floor needs to go. I started off by making some terrain in Blender using geometry nodes. I then separated the UVs into 2 channels, the first of which lets us interpolate between 2 shades of green based on the height, and the second allows us to overlay a grass texture on top. Then, to finish it off, I changed the skybox to be a lot more vibrant. Now, you guys are creating quite a goofy game here. So I decided my contribution would be to give the sun a face of its own. Oh god. To try and make him a little less creepy, I added a sunflower stem, but that really didn't help. Sleep well tonight, guys. Alright, so our island looks beautiful, but there's not much going on. It's literally just a load of grass. A few ideas mentioned different biomes that they wanted our game to take place on, so here's my idea. We split the island into 4 quadrants, each with their own difficulties such as hillier terrain or reduced visibility. YouTube user Zevkev suggested we make one of these biomes a rainforest. To be fair, our ground is already pretty rainforesty, so all we need are some trees. I modeled this one in Blender, and after giving it some alpha card leaves, as well as a wind animation, it actually looks quite good. There is a tricky performance problem at play here though, so we'll come back to this section later. Okay, for the next quadrant, Discord commenter Peppercode said, a huge hill that drops into a pool. He didn't mention what type of pool this was, so I'm going to be cheeky and redefine this as a volcano. To begin, I added a mesh under our terrain to represent the lava, and carved out some rivers that will meander through it. Now, one of my main motivations when making this game was to improve my art skills from some of my previous games. Here's the first pass of the volcano. When I took this to Twitter, however, a ton of people said it looked very N64-esque, like Banjo-Kazooie or Mario 64. And while I'm flattered, that isn't really what I was going for. That night, I basically cried myself to sleep. But when I woke up, I decided that I wouldn't be defeated. Needless to say, this looks a lot better. A ton of you guys mentioned beans somewhere in your comments. One guy a little too enthusiastically. So I added some beanstalks to cut off the edge of the island, as well as a train that zooms through the mountain, because why not? And I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. Now it looks like a Wii game. Alright, so let's improve the lava region by giving it some more atmosphere. I started off by giving it its own ground colour and using a texture mask to blend it into the jungle region. One glaring problem with this is we don't really have a way to get across that lava river, unless I guess you count tornadoes. So let's fix that by modelling a bridge in Blender, as well as these ramps that I placed at the end of each of the bridges. Now we can drive between any of the 4 quadrants with ease. But I don't really think we can call changing the ground colour a biome. So let's add some valleys and peaks to it. This makes the area really difficult to navigate without flipping over. And finally, I made this effigy in Blender with Berg's skull on it. The effigies seem to give the biome a bit more of a thematic vibe, and with that, the lava region is done. Discord member P... commented, add corn. Okay man, I'll do it. As Mr. ... wishes, I made this corn texture in Affinity, which I then turned into an alpha card and scattered them all around the terrain. As much as I'd love to do an Interstellar bit here, I am also really scared of Christopher Nolan. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering how I'm making these animation sections for Berg, let me introduce you to today's sponsor, Animotive. Trust me, it's a good one. Animotive is an industry-agnostic animation tool that you can use to animate characters in VR. You can also collaborate with other users over the web to make short films or create an animation for your next indie game. And at some point in March, Animotive will be adding the ability to export the raw FBX animations, which means you can tweak them in your game engine of choice if there's something you're just not happy with. If you're interested in this, Animotive has a Discord server where you can keep up to date with the tool and all things Animotive. You can join their Discord and download and try the tool for free at the links in the description. I complemented the cornfield by making a windmill model in Blender and wrote a script to rotate the blades. And finally, to round off the cornfield biome, I changed the dirt colour to something a little easier on the eyes. My thought process here is that because the corn is yellow, the banana will be harder to see in the field. So let's go back to our rainforest area. I updated the tree with a particle system that dropped some little leaves randomly and scattered them all around the terrain. Each one of these trees is quite bad for performance though because of the alpha cards, so we'll have to use them sparingly. I modelled some palm trees that should be a little bit more performant and scattered those around the rainforest as well, which definitely improves this biome a lot. Okay, so that's 3 out of 4 biomes. The final biome is a suggestion from friend of the channel Justin Hughes, who commented, spooky ghost. Ooh. Now, I'm not sure if this was a threat, but either way, we're adding a graveyard. I started this biome with some hazy fog to reduce the player's visibility, then naturally modelled a grave. These look pretty scary if I do say so myself. Next, I modelled and animated a ghost in Blender to patrol the biome, but I had no business making these guys look so cute. Next, to make this place a bit more maze-like, I scattered some purple fences around. Now, as this is a community effort, I didn't want to leave out my beautiful Patreons who for as little as $2 a month get the source code to a ton of projects including this one. So I asked them for something each one of them wanted in a grave to represent them. There's a playing card, a block of cheese, a rat, apparently someone wanted to be a rat, I don't know, a pepper, this frog, a flower, a bee, a heart, and finally my favourite, penguin. So now our environment is completely done and we can race around collecting bananas. But the last thing we need is an actual game loop. I decided the goal of this game is to collect 15 bananas as fast as you can. There's some UI at the top to show you your time remaining, as well as your banana count. Bananas do spawn randomly, but there's a seed system which will let you and your friends compete on the same layout. I've opened up a channel on Discord for speedrunning, so you can join that in the description. You'll also find a link to the game there. It's called Barji. You see what I did there? And finally, I added some music, which is what you're hearing right now. It was made by YouTuber Azali, so go and check them out if you want. Make sure to subscribe, like, join the Patreon if you want to delve into the source code, and I'll see you soon for something very, very special.